Hi, Andrew Vasquez here with 3E Development. Now some of you may be familiar with this, but I'm going to show you how simple it is to test your apps through TestFlight. So to get TestFlight going, you'll need to have three resources open. Developer.apple.com, your member center, iTunes Connect, and also Xcode. So to prepare your TestFlight setup, you'll need to make sure you have the right provisioning profile before you compile and archive your IPA. So let's go to the Member Center and work on that. Under Certificates, Identifiers, and Profiles, you're going to want to create that profile. So before you can create your provisioning profile, you'll need to make sure you have an app ID. You probably already have an app ID if you've been running your app and testing it. But just to show you how it's done, you go to the app ID section, press the plus button, and begin just making your app ID. So add a description to it. And your bundle ID will be usually, like it says, a reverse domain name. So com.3edevelopment.myapp or my new app. It doesn't have to be whatever highlights. That's just something I've done before. You can also choose wildcard, in which case you don't need to have a specific name for your app. Select any services that actually apply to your app and then select continue. All right, it's now registered. Okay, here it is. So let's go ahead and create that certificate. All right, we'll need to be creating a production certificate and press the plus button. Now, if you have a grayed out iOS app development or a grayed out App Store and ad hoc section, that's probably because you have three already created. I believe you have a max of 3 production certificates and 3 development certificates. If you already have 3, just revoke one of them before you do this part. You're going to need the ad hoc version because the ad hoc will allow you to do the TestFlight. Press continue, and now it gives you the step-by-step process of being able to request your certificate. You'll need to go to Keychain Access. You'll need to select the menu, Certificate Assistance, request a certificate from a certificate authority. Go ahead and enter your information. You're going to want to save it to the disk. Select continue. And a safe location. Okay, I have it. Now let's go back to the Member Center. Select continue where you're creating your certificate, and now you're going to choose that location where it was saved. I believe it was on the desktop. Certificate signing request, and choose this file. And now generate your certificate. Okay, now it's ready to go. I believe you can download it. It's not necessary, but it is safe. Okay, now we have that new certificate. This is it. Now let's go down to creating that provisioning profile. This is your last step before heading back to Xcode to archive your IPA. Let's go ahead and press the plus button, and you'll need that ad hoc distribution profile. Select continue. You'll need to select your app ID that you created. Select continue. And now the certificate that we just created. Now, if you've already loaded some UDIDs and names to your devices lists, it will load them up here. But this is usually the old way that TestFlight used to work. The new way, you can add just email addresses in iTunes Connect, and I'll show you that later. Select continue. Give it a name. It's kind of super descriptive, but I like to be descriptive, so I don't have any question about it. Go ahead and generating it. Great. Okay, so now that we have that done, let's go back to Xcode. Before we go to Xcode, make sure you have your apps already ready for its archiving. So you'll want to create a new app. Give it a name. Version number. Usually start with 100. English or whatever language is primary to you. And then choose the bundle ID that you created earlier. And SKU is, as it says, just any ID. Now choose something that's probably a little more meaningful to you than any ID. Well, name's too short, and I guess this is an app that's already been taken, so I have to rename it. Okay. Now we have our app ready to submit from Xcode. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to Product, Archive. Before we do that, we'll need to change our bundle identifier to match up what we created in the App Store. Now what we created in the App Store was my new app. That's the suffix from the bundle identifier that we'll need to match up with. I have the 3E development part down. Let's go ahead and modify that. So click on your target. Give it a click so that you can rename it. And match it up with the suffix from your app ID. Give it a little refresh by navigating away from general and coming back. And you'll see that your bundle identifier matches now. So now you're ready to archive it. Great, my new app is ready to go out. You need to validate it and submit it. Choose the certificate you already have. Okay, once it gives you the good to go sign, you can go back to iTunes Connect and check your pre-releases. Now, the one I made for this demo is a fake email address for this app. The email address is not actually an iTunes developer account. So I'm going to go back to one that is and show you what it will look like whenever you've submitted your build. So go to pre-release and you'll see your selection of builds that you've previously submitted. Now these aren't ready for the App Store, but they're ready for test reviewing. So you can select on a specific build and select TestFlight beta testing. But first you want to make sure that your internal testers are selected. And internal testers, these will be the people you have on your team. So in my case, it's only 2 people. That's who will fall under the internal testers. You also have your externals that you can add. Now let's go back to builds. And once you flip this switch on the right, all of your internal testers will then receive an email about this latest build that you've created. They'll get an email to download and install your app. So that helps with the internal testers part. Once you're done with that, you can submit the app for beta review. You give a description of what to test. Go ahead and click next. Next. And now it's in beta app review. Now, once it passes this beta app review, you have the ability to send it off to your external testers for more testing. This is the part where I mentioned earlier that you could add more testers to your list just by using an email address. If you notice that plus icon next to the testers 3 of 1000 added, that's where you can go ahead and add more testers to your list. That concludes this 3E development tutorial. I hope you got everything you needed to get TestFlight running. If you have any questions, leave a question below. Thanks for listening.